5, 4.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this session of Latino Perspectives. We're doing a special tonight on the recent election that just happened a few days ago, primary election results, and I have two political gurus with me here. On my right, I have Dr. Marty Ramirez, who's a clinical psychologist. He's retired now, but he's an activist that goes back. How old are you, Marty? 67 years, 68 years. Martha Nieves is another individual who's been an activist here in Omaha for at least 40 years.
Yes.
That I'm aware of, because she was back with us back when we started doing the Latinos, what is it called?
It's now Latino Center of the Midland.
Yeah, it's Chicano Awareness Center. So
Yep.
anyway, we're here tonight with Dr. Ramirez and Ms. Nieves, who are very active in politics. Ms. Nieves, in particular, is a member of the Democratic Party on the state level, and Marty, of course, has been active, not necessarily as Democrat, but he, just as a civic duty. He's civic minded, and he's always encouraged people to go out and vote. So, Marty, why are we here? What are we going to do tonight?
Probably more to, as I reminded you earlier, this is 2014. With a lot of frustration, a lot of reality, that if you go back to the history, and I won't go too far back, but since the Civil Rights Movement and the Chicano movement, where we in the community and those outside the community said, hey, we need to break some of the stereotypes. We need to make some changes. And as you had mentioned earlier, some politicians like Governor Exxon and Senator Zorinsky were very committed. I mean, things were just, it seemed and appeared right in the 70s that we were going to move forward. However, it was a big disappointment. Fast forward to the 1990s, when again everybody said, oh, the 2000 election, this is the year of the Latino. They're coming. And again, everybody got excited. And then again, it just fell through. Fast forward to 2014. Again, every year you have elections. Every year everybody wants votes. And now, with the consistency, people are very sensitive to the impact of the changing demographics. That outside of Nebraska, Latinos are really making a difference. And politicians of all sorts know it. Here in Nebraska, there's the same spectrum going on. That in Nebraska, one can win an election by 50 votes, 25 votes, 500 votes. And Latinos can be part of this.
The difference.
A difference. But here's the reality. This is why so many politicians are coming forward and wooing and wanting on your show, because they know that we could vote. And they're not going to take the chance of missing. Today, they know that we didn't vote. This is why we won't see them. That's just a standard reality. And it's going to be through change amongst us, even as we discuss, well, how do we bridge this gap? Because if you look at the number of percentage people that voted, it's very low. And it's even lower with minorities. How do we address this? This is the challenge. We need to speak like this. We need to get angry, excited, and hold the Latino community and the leaders, or leaders to be. You can't have both ways. You cannot wake up and complain and hope and wish that things would change. And then, but did you vote? Well, no. So there's part of the American psyche and humanity psyche that wants it both ways. Because if you didn't vote, then you're going to spend all the time. And here's the other reality. Do you realize that if you don't vote, that's the worst decision you can make? because there's consequences. That these politicians are going to be elected, go and make decisions and policy that are going to affect every aspect of your life. Is how it works. I've come to the conclusion that all the meetings and parades and demonstrations don't mean
Diddley.
diddly in reality. And look at us, that when we had this massive immigration parades, that you had hundreds of thousands, we had 20,000 in Omaha, we had 5,000 in Lincoln, everybody came out. But then, didn't mean diddly.
Didn't mean
So,
diddley.
that's my thoughts.
Yeah, no, that's,
But-
that's
What's
great.
happening
You're
today?
setting a stage that it's important for us to know our history in order to move forward. But I want to focus on the future. And I'm the chair of the Nebraska Democratic Party Latino Caucus. And I am experiencing some of the same frustration that you've expressed, because I want people to get involved. I want people to know the issues. I want people to use their voices and at the ballot box. Only I have been spending time making a lot of phone calls, and it's not just the Latinos who don't vote, especially in a primary. That's the part that's so frustrating. I have some numbers here. In this last primary for the Senate race, there were 123,656 Republicans who voted and 66,428 Democrats. So I did a lot of phone calling, and people would say, "Oh well, no, it's just a primary." Well, you know what? There are some contested races in there, and it's important that really they didn't know. A lot of information that is out there is not getting to people, or people are saying, "Well, I'm too busy." And my answer to that is something that you said earlier, Marty. You said other people will be making decisions that will affect your life and your children's lives and your grandchildren's lives. And that's one of the reasons why I'm an activist. That is why I am involved in the political arena. Because if one does not take an interest in a democracy where we are blessed to have the vote, I don't know if people are watching the news. There are countries where people are dying because they want the vote. And here we have it, and we're not using it. I mean, it defies logic as far as I'm concerned.
Well, it's so true, and I'm trying to put my thoughts together here so that it works with what you guys are saying. The one issue is this segment of our society which we can relate to, which is we call Latinos or Chicanos, and whether or not they are any different than the overall society in their voting habits and the percentages that they turn out. Because that's an issue that we have to own up to, is that there's apathy all over the place. And if we're fighting, looks like upstream, we're going upstream, if we're trying to take a segment and say they don't vote,
Right.
and while nobody votes, well, some people do vote, and there are some dynamics associated with who goes out and votes during the primaries, and it's usually what I call the extremists, the zealots, the people like me and you who will always go vote irrespective of the issue. But then, like when President Obama was running, there was some heavy activity because he brought motivation, he brought inspiration to the process. So now, Marty, the issue here is, do we take on that responsibility as individuals? Is it our responsibility to be concerned about the Latino turnout?
Yes, it is. I mean, you cannot be calling yourself an activist if you don't take this challenge. And even though it's not time for concluding, but I conclude that, and I challenge everybody, if you have any opinion about what we're talking, let us know, because I'm proposing that we need to have a statewide summit, for a better term, to talk specifically about this issue. It's not a Lincoln or an Eastern Nebraska Latino issue, which has been part of the history. All of us need to come and say, look, and take note of how Obama won and how we're getting all these calls. There is a strategy that can be with technology. I mean, to divide the whole state into sections and you make all these calls. That should be part of the strategy. But we need to sit down and formulate a strategy and not come a day after the elections and talk about what we talked about 40 years ago.
So,
Because that's what we find ourselves doing.
I agree,
Right,
I agree.
but what I'm seeing and why I wanted to do it today is that we had some results that we
Baseline.
could look at. Yes,
Right.
some baselines, exactly, Reynaldo. And I'll give you an example. We have a young man in Lexington, Nebraska. His name is Luis Sotelo,